from Marilyn Sewell. Come into this circle of love and justice. Come into this community where we can dream and believe in those dreams. Come into this holy space where we remember who we are and how we want to live. Come now and let us plan together. Fred?
Yep, thank you, Pat. Looks like we've still got some people coming in, but I can start the presentation in a minute or so.
Sure.
To see if more people show up.
So Fred, this
Yes,
Dale.
Dale.
We had our Florida UU Justice Network met this afternoon, and we talked about the model of the leaders group that you've put together here for a national get-together, and they're going to begin a monthly Florida UU leaders group to begin meeting and connecting the social justice parts of the 45 congregations that are here in a model similar to this, and they're pretty excited about that. So just wanted to let you know.
Wow. Are you going to lead that too, Dale? Or,
Well, I sit on there. I'm not the chair of the network there. That's he's actually the president of the Fort Myers Unitarian Universalists is chairing that, but there were another member from our board is in Palm Beach, and she's on the Florida board as well. So we're getting some cross connections between kind of the national and the state networks.
Good. I'll start my presentation. Hopefully you can all see the first slide. So we start by talking about power briefly. So power isn't necessarily good or necessarily bad. It depends on what you're trying to do. And to quote Marshall Gans, power is not a thing you have. It's an influence created through interdependence. So it gives you influence. And to quote Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., we must discover the power of love, the redemptive power of love. And when we discover that we will be able to make of this old world a new world. And if you think about our 7 values over in the corner here, pretty much all of those values are under attack right now. So we need to get serious about power. The encouraging thing is that social movements, in most cases, have a moment when autocracy gets pushed out. So that's what we're shooting for. Autocratic power relies on pillars of support. So from the media, from government, from corporations, from organizations like ICE, from workers. So nothing happens without the consent of the people. Those who are doing the actual work that makes things happen. So when we say no, regimes can fall. So, and faith groups can play a big role in this. So the 4 B's, block is protect and collaborate. Break is disrupt and end authoritarianism. Bridge is grow the movement and promote dialogue between individuals. And build is where we get to the deep structural change that will make things work better for us. So we're going to ask you later on in the agenda to basically choose one of those. And I'm going to go through them in more detail now. But we're going to break out into groups for those particular issues. So block is stopping as much harm from happening as possible. So protect communities and individuals who are under threat. So immigrants, LGBTQ people, a lot of different individuals in very other settings they need to be protected. In terms of if you notice something that's happening where someone is being taken off the street, disappeared, it's a good idea to witness that if you can. Record it and expose it in some way. make it visible to others. And don't obey in advance. So the idea here, especially if you're a large group of people, is to be strong and build coalitions with others. The bigger group you are, the more confidence you can have. And the courts are doing a good job of stopping illegal executive orders. I was listening to Heather Cox Richardson today, and she said that something like 97% of the cases have blocked the orders so far, which is pretty impressive. And advocate against harmful legislation. So we do that. We'll be doing that shortly in terms of the reconciliation bill that's in front of this. It's going to be in front of the Senate. So that's block. Break is weakening and ultimately breaking authoritarian political strength and its popular support. So we want to focus on things where we can win. We want to get media attention. We want to promote and participate in protest events. A lot of the breaking happens when we get to strikes, boycotts, and non-cooperation actions. And here you want to pressure pillars of support. So take advantage of backlash, take advantage of places where you can make a difference, and pick fights that highlight unpopular anti-democratic actions. So that's break. Bridge is basically bringing people together, individuals and groups. And we want to be growing our pro-democracy movement. We need to get it bigger in order to be successful. So that's kind of what our major objective is to keep bringing more people into the movement. So build relationships with other groups, find new allies, experiment with messaging to make it more attractive to join with you, and invite conversations with individuals and without judgment. Basically listen well, give people space to disagree, find common ground. So that's bridge, bring people together. And finally, build is to invest in and build political power. So we need to get up to that status and keep building it. Develop and improve systems that work for the people. So work on the systems. Don't count on existing structures. Organize more deeply and powerfully. We need to wind up rebuilding a lot of things, Congress, media, our economic system, and show what is possible. So the key at this stage is to really build a vision that people can say, yeah, we really want to achieve that. So that's build. So what we're going to do is we're going to do breakout groups. And each one of you will be assigned to, well, pick a group. Paulette, can we do let me stop sharing here. I wanted to do a quick debrief just to get some of the thoughts that came from each of the groups. And if each of the group leaders could just kind of hit a couple thoughts, and then if any of you want to add to those, that would be great. So why don't we can see if we got everybody back. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24.
Yeah.
Pretty close. So Dale, what did you have for key thoughts in your group?
So several people, or someone brought up the idea that, our immediate reaction to this kind of authoritarian threat is to try and resist. So blocking is a first line defense. But it's simultaneously, we need to be bridging, to reach across the aisle and try and expand our side. The other two, the building the future situation seems a ways away, and disruption is, we're all trying to learn how to do that. So the primary strategies seem to be blocking and bridging right now to some extent. And that
Yeah, go ahead. What were the bridging activities that you thought were great?
The blocking ones. I'm in the blocking
ones. Sorry.
Yeah.
So
I think that people are focused on protecting people and trying to advocate to get our Congress, our congressional representatives to stop some of the activities that are occurring. I don't think we mentioned this, but as far as the ability to influence what's happening in the courts, I think we're pretty limited in what we can do other than giving money to some of these organizations like the ACLU or that group. But we can appeal to our representatives, and more than that, I think people are focus on trying to block the harm that can be done to the really vulnerable people right now. A couple really interesting things. Janelle in near Dearborn had made the statement that their congregation has become, their Democracy Action Team is their entire congregation. And
Whoa.
they've got their entire congregation and I think that stretched my thinking, Fred, about what a Democracy Action Team is. So
Janelle, how big is your congregation?
It's a little over 200.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's
Nice.
sweet.
Mhm.
Woo!
Do you have
Yeah,
a
it's pretty
leadership
cool.
group or something? How do you do that?
We have sub action teams, but the overall action team is the entire congregation. And then within that, there's an immigrant action team and LBGT, plus action team. So there are subgroups, but we meet once a month as a congregational democracy action team
Wow.
for report outs. Mhm.
That's impressive.
That's neat. Thank you.
And another idea that came out that was really interesting, and I'm trying to remember who that came at, that was that they're having protest poster parties. Is that,
Yep.
did I say that correctly? I think whoever,
Did, yeah.
yeah, Gail.
Gail.
Huh?
That sounds like fun.
So they get together and I'll kind of tell me if I say it right. Get together, they create the posters, they have a party, and they leave the posters at the congregation, and people can check them out and use them for the protests.
That's
Great idea.
hilarious.
I think
muted,
it's great.
Gail.
That's
Speak.
hilarious. I love
Okay,
it.
Jamie, we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, that's a good one. Thank
I
you.
This
love
would
be a that one.
great
Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah.
You want to say a little bit more about it, Gail?
It was us. We do
Oh,
it.
yeah.
It's our library.
Oh, that's
They're in
right.
our library.
Yeah.
They're in our library. Everybody brought an appetizer and a bottle of wine. Huh. And we had a wonderful time, and it was very uplifting. We
they
were
got-
on YouTube looking for signs to make, and we have a protest poster to match your every mood. Trust me.
Yeah, we were about to hold our first sign making party.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
wonderful.
that's right. That's right.
So,
That was it.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. And also I just thought, Joanne, we could get maybe there's some people who are really good with graphics.
There are.
Then we could have a real riot.
And to get kids involved, I mean, people, I know people enjoy seeing kids' art, so.
I think that's enough from here. Those are two great ideas.
That's great. Thank you. Tony, how about break?
Okay, you're interested in actions that we came up with?
Yeah, anything that you thought was worth sharing.
Okay, so let me see. Well, it was mentioned that, our beliefs, our principles are under attack, but we're united in dealing with it and fighting it, and we can mobilize quickly in our congregations to take action.
Good.
So some of the actions we came up with is, some of these are, the things that you're seeing pretty widely being used is form a democracy action team, go to protests and bring a sign, write letters to the editor, contact your representatives, reach out to other faiths and build larger and larger coalitions, get more people involved, spread the word.
Yep. Great.
And what about some of the more serious things like boycotts and non-cooperation?
Well, interestingly, I mean, some people in our group heard about them, but a couple people didn't hear much about them, and it doesn't look like there's any action in their congregation about the boycott. So I suggested that they, check it out and spread the word, because we need more people to participate in these boycotts. They're off to a good start, is the way it's been described by the experts, but we do need a lot more people to do it.
Yeah, it probably needs more
Information
coordination.
on those, information on the boycotts that are underway. I mean, Target's gotten the biggest press uh, for having had a real significant hit in their revenue.
Yeah.
There's a list in our actions and events list.
There is? Okay, great. Thanks.
At UUSJ, under the Democracy Leaders area, you can find events.
Yeah, I think the other thing we discussed too is as Tony says, that looking at this in terms of building very large coalitions. So what in the world does that mean?
Yeah.
Well, if you look around and ask yourself, what would you do strategically to stop fascism? Okay, to stop what we're seeing. Well, we saw what Harvard did, right? As they began to bring in all the universities.
Mm-hmm.
They even managed to bring Columbia back in, who realized they'd made a terrible mistake. And they're back signed up with Harvard. So we were asking ourselves, what would a strategy look like? Right? We've got hundreds of little disparate things that we're all doing. Posters, letters. My personal belief is that we are well beyond that. I think Paul mentioned that it's reaching a point where people are putting their lives on the line. And I go back to when I was 26 years old and we were demonstrating against the war in Vietnam. And it wasn't until 1 million people, 1 million kids, me one of them, kids, right?
I was there.
Showed up in Washington, right? And in 3 weeks, Johnson saw the disruption and we were, out of Vietnam. So it's that kind of thinking. And I don't propose to have an answer, but I don't see any strategy. I don't see any strategic approach other than the few books that have been written that seem to offer experience. I use the example of what happened in Israel when Netanyahu wanted to abolish the judicial system. It was something like 1/3 to 1/2 of the entire citizenry marched into Tel Aviv. I mean, there were so many people. It was like, Martin Luther King on the walk. So I think what's absent in all of this, and we're all reaching for it, is what is a strategic plan based on experience and based on what other people have found helpful, rather than these disparate, small, really good, worthy things.
I agree, Michael. I have the same thought. Like, why isn't that happening now? And the only thing I can think is maybe it's happening, but it's being done in secret for probably good reasons. And maybe they don't have the plan established yet because they have to work with a lot of different organizations with different leaders and different priorities. And that's got to take time. I don't know.
I don't know.
I think for me, the plan is keep growing, keep networking with Indivisible and MoveOn.org and ACLU and 50501. I feel we're getting bigger and bigger. We had an organization at First Unitarian. It was an inter-organization meeting, and there were 40 people in the room. And we're getting it that we have to collaborate. And yes, we go to protest together, but we're still, I think if we just keep at it, we are getting critical mass. We just have to keep going.
Yeah, and Paul, as you pointed out in the meeting, it is hard to do, right? It's hard to get people together.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Communication is also key, with all these groups to have rapid access to what one another is doing
Right.
Yeah. I think that a difference between 60s and 70s and now is the control of the media. Right. So that there is ironclad control of the messaging. And I think that that's a significant difference, right?
I think
Dave had his hand up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just real quickly, in terms of strategy, I haven't heard anybody yet mention the concept of passive allies. This, I think, is perhaps the most important strategy for building the movement because we need something to focus on. So if you identify groups that have large numbers proportionally of people who would take action. They're just not yet taking action. And those are the groups to be building coalition with and forming alliances. That'll be a lot of bang for the buck, so to speak.
You have some groups you're working with, Dave?
Just the main example I'll give on this line is we chose to do our June 14th events down at Springfield. And we are working very closely with veterans organizations and have several vets who are very good speakers and writers who are kind of leading that, because there are a lot of vets who really feeling the pain, but are not yet connected.
Right. Beautiful.
Excellent. Good
Great
to know.
idea.
Yeah.
Thank you. Joe, you have something you wanted to say?
Two quick things. The first one, up, he changed on, I think it's Michael. Your picture moved. What did I forget? Oh, you compared the times to the 60s, etc.
Right.
I think one of the big differences is that men were being drafted. And when we saw body counts, that started to make a big difference. And unless it affects you personally, it goes back to that.
Right.
There are a lot of people who just would rather go in hiding. But if we have any time tonight, I would love to hear more about how the whole congregation is an action team, because I have never heard that expression. We're siloed. Ours is closer to 300, and maybe that's the reason. But we're siloed. It's almost like we take care of the environment. Our little green team takes care of the environment. No. That's not how you should look at it. We might be leaders, we might be helpers, but we need everybody at one time or another. So I would really love to know how you can get a whole congregation behind the idea that we need to respond.
Do you want to try doing that for like a minute or two? Or is that too hard, Janelle?
How did you convince them, and how did you get past the bureaucracy of having to pass resolutions? Or
maybe we should have Janelle present at our next.
That could be very, very interesting, how to do that. Because we have an awful lot of rules, because they're democratic and we want to make sure every voice is heard, etc. And I would love to see our whole congregation walk out of the building and walk downtown where we usually have the rallies. It's not that far away. And if they need a wheelchair, you push them in a wheelchair, right? Or they could have their little jazzies or something. It's only a few blocks away. We could have not balloons, signs, etc., and walk there and have press and this whole congregation turning out for an issue. Wow.
Could I jump in with a quick response to that? I think it's important to get your minister involved in your social justice actions. One of the things we started doing was at many of our services, we have a social justice minute where somebody talks, it's more like 3 or 4 minutes. It talks about a current action or event and really make a pitch to get people involved and why they should get involved in it.
Social Justice Minute. Love that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Janelle, we'll talk. Okay.
Sure. Absolutely. I will just follow up on that statement. We have a minister with the energy and the credibility. I think we would follow him anywhere, every single one of us. So with him at the helm, with obviously other instrumental leaders, I think that made a really big difference in terms of all of us believing we wanted to be in this together.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Pablo, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of address this question of like, why aren't people more angry? Why aren't we, doing more? I think it's important to remember everybody in this room is sort of already bought in to the idea of the emergency and the need to take action of some sort. And so you're further along You're like one of those early, like I use the metaphor of the boiling pot of water. You're one of those early bubbles, the teeny tiny bubbles that starts to rise. But if we want to achieve the rolling bubble, all of you need to find like-minded folks, and that's where the 4Bs come into play, because it's in doing the bridging that you're going to connect to the veterans who are sitting on some tough feelings right now. A lot of them voted for Mr. Trump, and they now feel like they got a raw deal. This is not what they signed up for. And others, a lot of members of Congress didn't feel like they were expecting to have death threats turned in their direction.
Right.
So that's the work of the bridging, right? And you're right, we got to do it simultaneously. But don't get too angry and frustrated with the rest of the American public, because it's really important to remember you can't easily compare us to Israel or South Korea or Chile or some of these places where they had an almost immediate reaction, because those societies were dealing with major public figures who had dictatorial inclinations for a while. They had a certain amount of practice leading into the big headline event that we're all talking about. And South Korea is the perfect example. You know, they were able to get rid of their autocratic leaning, dictatorial leaning guy in December, but that's because they'd had 2 or 3 people try to do the same thing first during the past 15 years. So as a society, they were like, wait a minute, we didn't sign up for this. We're not going to do this. We're not going to tolerate it. And I would imagine that if you look closely, you'll find a similar circumstance in the Israeli case too. So remember, why are we talking about mobilizing, getting better at mobilizing? Why did we at UUSJ ask you to join the mass trainings with Rise for Freedom? Because the American public hasn't had this experience since the Vietnam era, right? That's a long time. And so maybe a simple thing is for those of you who lived through that moment, take some time to talk with your adult children, take some time to talk with your grandparents, your grandchildren, and really share with them what it was like to live through that moment. There's a transfer of experience and knowledge that needs to occur. And only you guys can do it. I wasn't there.
Thank you, Pablo. One of the suggestions for people as who are on the leading edge, as are many of us, is to start experimenting with things. Do them with small spaces, small groups, and try some different things and see what reactions.
And so, I'll give you guys a early announcement. I'm in the process of trying to partner with the ACLU to help plug Unitarian Universalists into what they hope will be 1,000 training sessions across the United States during the summer, so that you can turn around and bring that 200-person congregation to an ACL training, so we can all get the skills that are needed for this moment. So you'll
Great idea.
Beth,
the Rise for Freedom training was excellent.
Yes. Beth, do you have something you want to say?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at all of us and we have a great deal of wisdom, right? I'm not seeing many young faces. And that is something that I think a lot of us are struggling with. And I would love to see some more discussion around that and hear of some successes that people may have had in their communities, not just their churches, but in their communities, in terms of engaging young people and trying to help them understand. Let's face it, this is going to be their world. And I think they haven't quite caught on to how serious things are.
Oh, thank you. Let's go back and hit the other groups. So there were 2 bridge groups, I believe, right? Ursula, and
yeah.
Jay.
Oh.
Go ahead, Ursula.
We talked about activities at the church, and one idea that they were in a book club that had been going for a long time, and they have a lot of fun, and they had pizza one night and made calls to Congress. So you can convert a social activity group that you already have into occasional actions. And of course, partnering with things like Indivisible and getting training with Braver Angels or Don't Mourn or Organize. And one person talked about that their minister has town halls once a month, and they can talk on any topic. Sometimes they have a short session at the beginning where they have an expert or someone talk on a topic, but then it's open to the congregation so that they can express their concerns or interests as they would like to be. And one safety tip that someone came up is if you go as a group to a rally or whatever, have one driver so that, you know, not all cars are identified. And we talked about, you know, wearing big hats and glasses and masks and so forth.
Okay.
Yeah. So, you know, the idea of combining fun and bringing and bridging, you know, I had this idea a long time ago. I haven't thought about it for a long time, but the idea of having almost like um, a big party, you know, host a big party and invite people from all over your community to it, and that it's going to have you know, music, bands, food, and maybe a keynote speaker uh, that's going to be fun and also educational with an eye toward growing, you know, getting people involved.
Great idea.
You know, it's something that I really would like to do. We didn't, you know, we didn't get very far with it in our discussions the first time around, but part of it maybe is that you have to invest some money in something like that. But maybe there are people who put up some money to do it. So
yeah, we
Denver,
organized a couple of democracy festivals for our group.
Yeah,
which was a good way to gather a bunch of people, and we had music and we had food and stuff.
you have done that, yeah. Yeah. Did you get did you get people, you know, from the community to show up that weren't our own people?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But we'd like more.
Yeah, I know, I hear you. Yeah. Well, you know, maybe we should do it together or something. I don't know. But
Do it in a park that's right near downtown. That's what we did.
oh, that's that's interesting. Yeah.
Dave, you want to talk about your group?
Yeah, sure. I'll start at the end because a request for what UUSJ and the Democracy Action Team Leaders Group, the subgroup, can do. Safety is an important concern. And some of us know that there are very experienced trainers who began their learning back in the 60s around nonviolent direct action. Of course, there are younger ones too, but there's this great body of knowledge about how to manage risk and stay as safe as possible. So we can talk offline about how to provide that. What a great group. I just learned a lot from the group. One of the specific ideas, since people respond to goals and we're all learning that attaining 3.5% of people active. So what's the number of 3.5% in your town or county? And, you know, set a goal around this. Yeah, I already mentioned the idea of passive allies, moving passive allies to being activists with you. Well, here's an idea mentioned that hits a lot of these dots, connects them. Indivisible, I think it was in the Albany area, I'm not sure, I don't remember who said it, but starting to organize neighborhood gatherings. So you bring in people you have relationships with, you know, and they may be passive allies. You may be talking to them in front of their house or your house or on the street or at a barbecue, and you get a sense that they're interested, but they're not yet taking action. Well, do something that's relatively easy with them, like a letter writing thing or something like that. So there were tons more ideas. Who else
We're going to
from?
capture them all, right?
Yeah, oh, I got them all written down. But
Good.
who else from the group that I was working with would like to add anything? David, Martha, looking at my screen here.
Looks like you did a good job, Dave.
Okay.
Hey, Fred,
Yeah.
just our group also, one of the members said they would like some training on, they had been arrested once before and they had planned to be arrested, but they felt they needed some training in an unplanned arrest. What should you do?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the kind.
Prepare for it.
Yeah, how would you prepare for that? And that's an interesting set of ideas that we ought to figure out.
Yeah.
Okay. Joanne, we didn't get to you yet, so what have you got to say?
I'll make it quick. We had a marvelous discussion. There were only 4 of us, but the whole concept of the build concept is very high level. And what everybody in our group is doing is creating a wonderful foundation to get to that build piece. And it was very impressive in terms of town halls, and building connections with other UUs, with secular groups, with Indivisible, with Jews for Justice, immigration work, and creating this foundation and creating a really group of increasing numbers of people involved, that this is exactly what Pablo was talking about. It's not at a boiling point and we're working on it, but I was really impressed with the variety of things that members of my group were doing. And I commented on, we are really in this for the long haul. This is not gotta fix this by next month.
Yeah, for sure.
We are in this for the very, very, very.
Yeah.
And to remind us of that.
Yeah, well, hopefully those groups can get together and kind of build a vision of what we should be like.
Yeah.
Good, thank you. Why don't it's close to 9 o'clock. I want to wrap this up with a couple of other things. Hold on a second. So coming up at UUA General Assembly, there's actions of immediate witness. I don't know if you're familiar with those, but UUSJ actually has 3 of them out of the 5 that have been suggested. And there'll be basically some sessions that are happening when you can give feedback on these various actions of immediate witness. And I'll put these in the chat as well. But you can see what they are. We declare and reaffirm all people have inherent worth and inalienable rights on June 2nd. The one that our group, the Democracy Action Team, has is faithful defiance of authoritarianism, reaffirming our covenants for democracy and freedom. And that feedback session is on June 3rd. And then the final one was voter justice and racial equity for the citizens of the nation's capital. And that's on June 8th. So if you're able to get to those, let me see where my chat is. Hold on here. Chat. There's the links that you can use if you want to attend one of those. And the other thing that we're doing at GA, or one of the other things, is on Thursday, June 19th at 1 p.m., we're going to have a Building a UU Democracy Leaders Community presentation. And Dale and I are doing that. It'll be on Zoom. And we'll talk about all the great things that we've been doing and what we're doing next and trying to draw more people into joining us. So
yeah, and thanks to everyone for giving us some content for our presentation.
Can't tell you how much I appreciate all you're doing. It brings tears to my eyes. Thank you so much, really.
So, so here you can register for this, even if you're not going to General Assembly. This will probably be our next month's gathering of this group. And it'll be good because we'll kind of recap a lot of what we've done, but we'll be talking about the future stuff too. So I think it'll be useful in general. So that's that. And then Ursula had a couple of things she wanted to say. Let me stop sharing here.
Hang on one second.
The main thing I wanted to mention is we are still working on getting a rapid response team. As you know, the reconciliation bill passed the House and it is going to the Senate. First, we're going to do action alerts, but we assume that at some point when it comes up for a vote, we would like to have what's called a rapid action response team that we flood the zone from all over the country to the Senate to have them vote against the bill, or if they clean it up, then it would be to vote for the bill, but it would be short notice. So I've put the form for that, and we put the word out to the team and then asked them to get people at their congregation and friends and so forth to call whatever the instructions are. Do you have a question?
No, just I love that, and then also, like this thing that we talked about, our book club. We're calling now, and and you can leave messages, and even if they know you're not from where you're at, from their area or whatever, there's a psychological impact on the people who have to listen to it over and over and over and over and over again, as well as they're probably doing some kind of counting about what it could mean in the midterms. So I think people should just call those Republican senators. Josh Hawley's kind of, strange politics make strange bedfellows. We gave him a lot of support. A bunch of us called and gave him a lot of support for what he's pushing. And so, yeah, I don't think it has to wait.
And you can call during the day your own senators. But a strategy is if you call after hours, of course, it'll go to voicemail. And you just say, hi, this is, and use your name or whatever, and say, I want you to vote yes or no on, and here's the reason why. And you can leave a quick message, and they don't know if you are a constituent or not. Some offices.
Ursula, you may not appreciate this, but we were calling Lindsey Graham's office and using Southern accents. So we had some fun with it.
But
Ursula,
yeah.
This is Paul in Denver. We have, out of our 350 members, we have 160 signed up on a rapid response team. But we're still, we do phone calls, emails, letters, and, go into the protests. But we're not as disciplined as I'd like us to be. But where can I find your rapid response link?
I put it in the chat at 9:02, and you can click on that and fill in the form, and we can then capture your name and email and phone number if we need to. And then you can, and we send a message with information of who, what, when, and you can spread the word.
So 9:02, your time would be 6:02 my time, maybe?
Yeah, it's in the chat.
In Colorado, right? 2 hours difference, right?
Yeah, I just bumped it up into the chat. So it's right now, it's the very last thing. It says Redux. Rapid response form. Okay.
Thank you. I got it.
And I just want everybody to understand the basic timeline, right? Like right now, organizations like UUSJ are huddling up and trying to figure out Senate strategy. We're trying to figure out which senators we think are movable on which issues. And the Senate has already begun some of its work. That'll hit running speed very, very soon when they come back, when the House comes back. But basically, they're aiming to pass a reconciliation package by July 4th. Now, maybe their timeline will slip, like the House timeline slipped several weeks. But practically speaking, they're likely to be voting on this after GA and by the 3rd of July. So everything we can do between now and then, including attending the UU Hill Day in Washington, D.C. on June 17th is helpful. So if you're within driving distance of DC, I encourage you to pay attention to those messages that Fred and Pup and I have sent out about that Hill Day. And lots of other organizations will be doing similar stuff. So more than anything, just plug in somewhere and raise your values.
Okay. I think that's pretty good. You all did a great job. I appreciate your time and effort in helping us put our strategic plan together. You'll probably be seeing more of it. All the various links and stuff we'll send out with the notes to the meeting. We've got recordings of the presentations. We don't obviously have recording of the breakout sessions. So try it if you're one of the people who took notes, be sure to get them to us, okay? And anybody got anything else to add?
Thank you so much.
Yep, we do if we hang around, if you've got extra questions for us, so a few of us will hang around. But